All right, so when you first think of helicopters, what do you think?
Attack helicopter.
Yeah?
Apache.
All right, well, sometimes I think of the iconic scene, you know, get to the chopper, yeah, from Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to broaden your knowledge on helicopters, but more specifically on the history of helicopters in general. My credibility is that I'm taking mechanical engineering, and my career goal is to be a helicopter pilot, either for the military or for either some side company. I can either work on helicopters or even be a helicopter pilot for news or the city or something like that. So the reason why I think that this my topic is important to a class like this is that I know many people don't know much about helicopters, and you know, it would be good to know if you know a little bit more, because knowledge is good. But first off, I'm going to start with the historical background, and then I'm going to start and then talk about the evolution, historical background type deal, and then start off, and then after that, I'm going to do the creation of the helicopter, and finally the helicopter today and its advances. So, as we come with the historical background, we start off with the very first interpretation of the helicopter. It was actually dated way back with the Chinese, who created this little toy here for children. You know, they started out and wasn't thinking very much of, oh, let's create this flying machine for everyone. Well, really, they were just trying to find ways to entertain the kids of the Chinese people, and it ended up being the main aspect of how we base our helicopters. And so you can see here on the right-hand side is Leonardo da Vinci's version of the helicopter. Even though that it wasn't very successful in his runs, it was thought of that one of the first of Leonardo's helicopters designs called for a shallow saucer-like gondola on which two upright posts were attached. Each of the posts carried a double set of wings by means of rather complicated system of cords, cylinders, and foot pedals. The pilot set the wings in motion with movements of his feet, hands, and head. So after a while, you probably wouldn't be very good at piloting this if you got a leg cramp or something like that. The wings of this craft were not flapping of the variety like the imitation of birds like what the Egyptians also did with there's been dated also another Egyptian toy of this little wooden airplane that people flew, and it was supposed to simulate like a crow or a bird or something like that. That was another aviation aspect, but we're sticking with helicopters today. But rather they moved with a horizontal plane, crisscrossing one another. This motion compressed the air between the wings and gave the craft lift. All right. So as we continue further through the timeline of the helicopter, we come to where the birth/creation and successful first flight take place. The evolution of, or birth as you call it, of the creation of the helicopter was started off with Leonardo da Vinci, but in 1486 was believed to be the first person to design a helicopter. But it took over almost 450 years, however, to actually create an actual working helicopter that was capable for people to carry passengers and board and stuff like all that stuff. And then it took several more years to build an actual practical one by means of efficiency in craft and stuff like that, which was in 1939, Igor Sikorsky flew the first economical helicopter, the VS-300, which is this right here. Soon later, with his invention of the first practical helicopter, helicopters were starting to come into the modern world as well in this time period, and they started to, transporting and soon helicopters are being used for military purposes such as observation as well as evacuating wood from the front lines. The Korean War is actually really important for the helicopter age right then because the helicopters was time to shine then because thanks to the work of these aerial ambulances, the death rate from the wounds was the lowest of any previous war. So these helicopters, because of their creation, were able to help save many lives during that time period of war. Now we are nearing the end and coming to the helicopter of today and its many advances it's been through. The helicopter today and its advances have really been, extensive. With the military, they go for stealth. They're starting to build stealth helicopters. They go for firepower. They build these massive, Apache AH-1 helicopters with all these missiles, Gatling guns, all the fun stuff. But the classification of helicopters was called rotorcraft, or rotary wing aircraft, to distinguish them from the fixed-wing aircraft because the helicopter delivers its source of lift from the rotor blades rotating around the mast. The word helicopter is adapted from the French helicoptere coined by Gustave de Pontet-Americourt in 1861. It is linked to the Greek's helix or helikos, spiral or turning, and the petron or wing. Also, most of the helicopters today use a turbine engine. As you can see here, there's the rotor mast, and most helicopters use today a turbine engine. Even though there are some helicopters, cheaper helicopters out there, that would use a piston engine, which is, even though it's cheaper, it's less efficient, so it wouldn't be as good as some of the more commercial helicopters or military helicopters that maybe use turbine engines. As you can see here, every helicopter comes with a tail rotor, main rotor blade. All the engines are in the back here. That's why we've never seen anyone saying back there when I was in front. And then you got the cockpit, but there's also certain terms with the helicopter crew. For the cockpit, even though that there was, I think it was like something called the cabin something, I don't know, because of there's like not being sexist or anything. So they change. So sometimes people use different terms for each parts of the helicopter. So also due to the unique operating characteristics of a helicopter, is its ability to take off and land vertically, to hover for an extended periods of time, and aircraft's handling priorities at low airspeed conditions. It has been chosen to conduct tasks that were previously not possible with any other aircraft before, or were too much time work intensive for the other aircraft. To accomplish on the ground. Today, helicopters are used for transportation, construction, firefighting, search and rescue, and a variety of other jobs that require its special capabilities. As the history of the helicopter keeps on moving forward, becoming better and more advanced than its previous descendant, you can conclude that the first ever sign of the creation of the helicopter started all back in China, where they made a little children's toy to entertain them, to the first successful flight that Igor Skitskrosy took with his first workable and functional helicopter, to the major advances in technology that we use in helicopters today, with the turbine engine and all the advances with military technology like this one. This is, I believe, another version of a I think it's either an Apache or the Cobra stealth chopper. That you can see there, looks kind of ridiculous, I think, with the tail being so big, but I don't know how the plans for stealth is for that. Yeah. So now with this newfound information that I gave you, I hope I broadened your knowledge on the history of helicopters. Thank you.
Sikorsky.
Oh.
And that's the way they sometimes refer to, because it's a brand name also. But yeah. So if you're talking about different kinds of helicopters, they'll frequently talk about a Sikorsky helicopter, and that's, the company that manufactured the earliest ones. Okay. Who is it who's doing our evaluation? They weren't here. Is that the deal?
Yeah.
All right. That's why I started talking. I knew there was a reason. I like the topic. You know what? I like your Arnold impression better than I like your rhetorical question. So I would have stuck with that. I thought that worked a little bit better. It's a little bit more interesting. And you have a couple other places where you try to inject some humor, and I think that that's a good thing. I think you should have been a little bit more consistent about that throughout the speech, and that would have kept things going a little bit more for you, as opposed to kind of falling into some of the same patterns that I mentioned before, where people are just kind of reading information and not really explaining or engaging with the audience. I thought those places where you did attempt a little bit of humor, you're trying to do that a little bit more, and you need to do that more regularly. There were some places where it was not clear at all what you were doing. With a preview, for instance, it sounds like it's going to be a historical review, but two of the points sound like they're exactly the same in the preview, and that's just confusing. It sounds like it's going to be chronological for the most part, but then when you get to the body of the speech, we've got that one section where you go back to describing, that whole third section. It's out of place. It should have been the second section in the speech if everything's chronological in nature. It just felt like it was totally out of sequence there. I didn't hear any citations in the material that you're presenting, and that's a little bit strange. I did like the origin of the word helicopter, from the French word. I thought that was something I could appreciate. But the mention of the Chinese toy, the reference to Leonardo da Vinci, I know that you got those from someplace, and so it's not something that shouldn't be cited. It should be cited in your presentation. The first model that you show, the Sikorsky helicopter, the basic model that's going on there, that when you talked about that made it sound like that's what we're looking at, is the picture of the helicopter that was being used in the earliest combat situations as a rescue helicopter or as an aerial ambulance. I'm going, I don't think that that's what they were sending out, and so it just feels like things are not quite in sequence, they're not quite matching up, and I think you're missing some opportunities to explain things a little bit more clearly. I did think that there was some good information in the speech, but it's not always, like I said, it's not always attributed, and it doesn't always get a complete explanation, which is problematic. A lot of the problems that we talked about with other people are occurring here. There's a lot of reading that's going on. You need to be a little bit more engaged. You need to practice. There's one point where you talked about what the terms for the helicopter were, and some of them are sexist, and we don't use, there are multiple terms. I'm going, what the hell is he talking about? I've got no idea. And it's like there's a story there that you've decided not to tell us, but you're telling us the story's there. And that just seems odd, that you need better planning on something like that. Either don't tell us that, or give us a brief explanation so we can know why it is that there's something that's a little bit different about the terminology that people use. I won't ask you to tell me the story now. It's just I'm sure that there's something there that just got left out, and there are probably reasons that it needed to be left out. All right. Thank you.